So in 2023, media walls like this, they seem to be the in thing. Everybody wants one. And in this video, I'm going to show you step by step how you can build one just like this yourself. And the best bit is, if you guys follow along to the end, any of you DIYers out there will be able to build yourselves one of these as a weekend project. So step number one of any media wall build, if you want it to be successful, is to make a proper scale drawing. I'll put a little picture of this up on the screen and you can pause the video and refer to this if you want to copy it. But what I would say is each media wall is different. No two will be the same, and that is because of the items that you'll be putting into that media wall. So for example, my TV is 50 inches and I might want the top of that TV to line up with my top shelf, for example. Or the size of the soundbar might dictate where the TV is positioned. So what I'd advise is to spend a bit of time making a scale drawing and doing a bit of working out so that you know exactly when you actually get around to building the wall itself, and you're not going to have any issues and you're not going to have to go back and change it. So spend a bit of time doing a scale drawing. Copy this one if you like, but bear in mind it is for a 50-inch TV, so therefore the sizes of this might not suit your individual build. Right, so my scale drawing's done, and what I'm now going to do is get a marker and mark that out on the wall so that I can follow that with my timbers. Now I've made a rough little mark already. In fact, the first time I did this, I put it a little bit far to the right so that I couldn't really see it properly from the sofa. I wasn't happy with it and I had to change it. I know where it's going to go now. I've made a good plan, I hope. If I make mistakes, I'm going to put this in so you're going to see them. And what we're now going to do is mark all that out on the wall. We know from our scale drawing that our media wall wants to be 2.7, so I've got a little mark at 2.7 and I'll now mark that on the wall. A big long level like this 1800 ox level is absolutely perfect for a job like this. And it really is just a case of following your drawing. We'll run the lines all the way up to the ceiling, and that does take time, but if you follow your drawing and you get your measurements absolutely perfect, that means you're not going to get any problems further down the line. Now, the room's been plastered on Monday morning. It's now Saturday morning. That gives me 2 days to get the structure built and get it plasterboarded. It's going to be tough. Right, so I'm really happy with the marking out on the wall. You could grab a reel of masking tape and tape along each line for your shelves, for your soundbar and for your TV, because at the moment this is just one big scale drawing and it can still be a little bit confusing to look at. That would allow you to visualize it a little bit more on the wall. And considering I'm on a bit of time pressure, I need to get on and build the thing. So I'm not going to do this bit, but if you're unsure, I would recommend it. The other point to make is on your plan, where you've marked out your TV, that's the place you're going to hide any skyboxes, any sockets, any lighting, all that kind of thing. That'll all be hidden behind your TV. So I've roughly marked out where my TV is going to go, and I've put a socket in up here behind the TV. There's also some cables up here for lighting. I'll show you in a little bit where those are going to go. Now if you do need to put a socket in, I have plenty of videos on the channel that'll help you do that, but if you're not competent or confident in electrical work, then do give an electrician a call, tell them where your TV is going to go, and I'm sure they'll be able to put a socket in for you. So we'll cut our first length of timber now. We're going to cut the top plate and bottom plate, and then we'll fill in between. I'll cut them to 2.7 because that's our total length, and then we'll get them fixed in place. So I'm now going to cut my first bit of timber. This is a 3 metre length of 47 by 125 mil timber. I got the whole lot from Wicks and it cost me about 150 quid. Some of it's a bit twisted. It took about half an hour to actually find some straight lengths down at Wicks. Do pick the straightest ones you can find. First thing you want to do is mark out 2.7. So we've got a 2.7 for the top and 2.7 for the bottom. Now we know where they're going to go on the wall because it's going to fit inside the marks that we made, but what we don't know is where the joists are. So get up there, mark the joists. The easiest way I like to do that is to use a little stud buddy. Really cheap, really effective. We'll just find the nails, we'll mark where each joist is, because then we'll know where to screw that top plate up to the joists. You'll see me using loads of little handy tools like this throughout the video. I'll put links in the description for the ones I think you'll find useful so you can grab yourself some. First timber I want to get attached is that top plate. I'm going to screw that up to the joists. I'm going to be using 80mm by 4.5 screws for this. And we're going to drive them up into the joists, which will hold that top plate there until we build the rest of the frame. Get someone to help you hold it up there if you can. If not, get a couple of props at hand to hold it up there. Once you've got a couple of screws in, it won't go anywhere and you can go along and screw the rest. But we'll get a couple in for now. Then just work your way along and get a couple of screws in each of the joists. Once your top plate is fixed to each joist, get your 2.7 bottom plate, push that to the wall, line it up with the marks just like the top one. Once you're happy that's in line with the mark, what we're going to do is mark for some holes and we're going to screw this to the floor. Drill a small pilot hole every 400mm along the length of the timber. Once you've got a pilot hole, use a little marksman to spray a mark. I'll do it a couple of times just to make sure I got it. And you can see there that's made a mark through the piece of timber onto the concrete floor below, and that is where we're going to drill our hole and put a plug in. Make sure you've no central heating pipes where you're going to be drilling. Now drill a hole big enough for an 8mm plug on the mark that the marksman made. Do that all the way along the length of the bottom piece of timber. Now lift your piece of timber back in place. Just drive some 80mm screws down into those plugs. So run those screws along and then we'll move on to the next step. So we'll cut another piece of timber that will complete our square frame. Once you've cut the upright, hopefully it's a couple of mil bigger than you need it to be, because that way you can just get it to stick in there. It's a little bit tight and then you can just manipulate it into position. We're checking our levels as we go. Once you're happy that the timber's plumb and level and nice and flush on the faces, we'll go ahead and pilot hole the timber at an angle. Then hold that timber steady and run a couple of screws at an angle down into the bottom plate. So we've got a bit of a frame knocked together. All the levels are absolutely spot on. Now whilst the frame is quite solid, you can see there, you do still have a little bit of movement in it. But because we now have another piece of timber coming up to this line here, we're going to then tie those two bits in so that will give it a little more rigidity. What I want to do as well, just really for belts and braces, because I don't want this timber to twist, is I'm going to put some L brackets just on the inside here. So you can see once you get your L brackets and the noggins in, that is solid. Going nowhere. Now what we've got to do is carry on doing much of the same and follow the plan on our piece of paper. You can start to see this coming together now. For example, you've got the 150 gaps between the edges and between the TV and the shelving, for example. Well, that's our 150 space. So you can see that when you start to build the frame, you actually start to see some of that shape coming together. So we'll get some horizontal sections in now and you'll start to see it coming together even more. Right, moving on to your horizontal sections, just like we did before, get a piece of timber on each edge that we marked out. So we'll have one on that edge, one on that edge, one on that edge, for example, and that will give us an edge for each section of plasterboard. So we'll just keep building now along the lines. Make sure that when you're doing these horizontal sections, you've got them first of all nice and flush. Secondly, get a little level and then make sure that they're level in all directions, because if you get them out, when you come to actually plasterboarding it, these will form your shelves, and things will roll off the shelves if you don't get them perfectly level. No, seriously, you're going to be sitting looking at this and it'll look terrible if the shelves aren't level. So spend a bit of time, make sure you get them all perfectly level. Right, so that is all the horizontal sections for the shelves down each side put in there. We don't need to put any noggins in them because the span's not very much, so they're not going to sag or anything like that. What we're now going to do is move on to this middle section here. So we're going to put a piece of timber across the top to give us our frame for the TV, and down on the bottom here to give us a frame for the bottom of the TV. Then we'll move on to the surround for the sound bar, and then this bottom shelf. But it is a bit repetitive, it's just more of the same. So you're going to get some B-roll, bit of music, watch me build the rest of this, and we'll talk again once I've built the rest of the structure. Tell you what, it's too hot out here to be doing this. Little one's playing in the back garden in a paddling pool. I thought about getting my swimsuit on. Right, I'm calling it quits for day one. I'll see you in the morning. So the morning of day 2 of the media wall build. So the plan for today, I need to get the rest of the stud work finished, which to be fair should only take me about 10 minutes. We're going to get all the lighting planned out, run all the cables for the lighting, and then plasterboard the whole thing by the time my mate who's a plasterer rocks up tomorrow morning. So, one day left. The pressure's on. To run the lighting cable to the LED strips, the way I'm going to do that is to use a spade bit, and I'll be putting holes through the pieces of timber to route the cables. What I would say is if you do it this way, make sure the holes for your cables are at least 30-40 mil back from the face of the timber, so that when you attach your plasterboard, you don't go and drill through them. To make holes in the timber for your cables, I'd suggest using a long spade bit like this, and you'll be able to get some nice holes through them pieces of timber. So I've chased that section of the wall out and built up this little section of 40 mil push fit plumbing pipe. So I'll stick it in with foam, let it go off, fill over the top of it with some bonding or some easy fill even, and then rub it all down, paint over it, cut the pipe flush to the wall, and that should give us the perfect bit of cable management. If you can think of a better way of doing it, do let me know in the comments below though. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Now for our LED strips, we're going to be feeding those with this lighting cable here, and therefore we need to drill some small holes in the top of each of the niches to run the cable through. To do that, I'm going to use a 10 mil spade bit, and I'm going to drill it in the corner of each niche so that we can run the cable through and leave it in place, and we'll then come along, we'll put our recessed profiles in, and our sticky back LED strips will go into those profiles. So we need to plan where each profile is going to go and put a hole through for the cable. We'll then need to find a route for all those cables, and we'll then be able to put them through the pipe that we put in the wall up to the controller. And now I can continue wiring up my lights. Starting with the feed for my 240 volt power supply. I can pull that up through that pipe now. Whilst I'm at it, I think I'll put the sky cable in as well and leave that coiled up just behind where the TV will be, because I'm going to be putting the sky box on a bracket behind the TV. So to give you a bit of an overview, I've got my power cable coming in here, and then that goes into the 240 volt power supply, which plugs into this little controller here, and then we'll be connecting 3 cables into that controller, and then these Wago connectors will just feed the different LED strips throughout the media wall. LED Space sent these solder-free LED light strips, and they are actually really easy to fit. All you need to do is work out how much length you want on the strip, and then you can see those little contacts there. All you need to do is just cut on that cut line, which is marked out for you, and that is it. That's the strip cut, and we can now use some little solder-free connectors that are supplied with the kit to connect this up. To connect them up, you just put the LED strip into the connector and then just squash the terminals onto the connector with your pliers. Really could not be easier. The other end of the connector is just as easy. You don't even need to strip back the ends of the cable. You just push them down into the relevant slots on the connector, and then again just use your pliers to nip those little terminals onto the cable. Now I'll just repeat that step for all the LED lighting, connect it all up with the Wagos, and then wire it into the controller. So I got one of these fancy little remotes with my LED Space lights, so let's give it a try and turn it on. Moment of truth. There we go. All the LEDs are working, and now we can go ahead and plasterboard the wall. For some reason the dog wants to be in this shot. I'm now going to plasterboard the media wall, but before I do that, do me a favour, pause the video, go down below and let me know in the comments what you want to see in the next video on the channel. And if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe because you don't want to miss it. Right, let's get on with some plasterboarding. 6 o'clock, Sunday afternoon, I managed to get the thing boarded. You can see there, all the plasterboard is in place and it's ready to be plastered tomorrow morning. So now this has been mist coated, before I do the final coat of paint, I want to fix my lights in place. Now, let me just get this out of here. Just like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to fix our strip lights in place into our recessed profiles in the top of each of these shelves. Now the kit that LED Space sent me is really good because it's recessed. So I'll have recessed profiles in the top of each of these shelves here, and that just gives me that nice downlight effect. I didn't want a surface mounted LED profile because you're going to see it when you look at the media wall. So let me show you how easy these are to fit. First thing I'll do is take a measurement of the opening. So that is 410, and what I'm going to do now is cut a recessed profile to 410. I'll just use my little miter block. This is what I use for cutting tile trims normally. And these are the little diffuser strips. They spread the light out nice and evenly. Now we're going to recess that into the top of the shelf. So I'll just place that bit of profile into its position, and then I'm going to just draw a little line with my tracer pencil at the top of that profile. I'm just going to use my multi-tool to cut along that line, and then we'll be able to just pull that bit of plasterboard out. Just pull that bit of board out all the way along. So we've got a nice little gap to get our profile in now. Now you can screw this up into the timber at the top of each of these recesses, but I've got a load of CT1 left over and it's just easier. So I'm going to put some blobs of CT1 just on the back, some big blobs on there. There's no weight to these anyway, so once that goes off, that'll be going nowhere. Take the sticky back off the LED strip, and then you'll be able to just push the strip up into the profile. That LED strip will stick into that profile. And now just snap the diffuser in place. So there you go, the lights are in. I can turn them on and off on my phone. There is a little remote with them as well. And I can adjust the colour and the brightness and all that stuff on my phone. I'm really happy with those. I'm glad I chose to go with the recessed profiles. I think they add just something a little bit extra rather than seeing the lights mounted on the surface. So yeah, really happy. Thanks to LED Space who supplied the lighting. The quality of their lights is really good. They're easy to wire up and they were really helpful when I asked them a couple of questions around what profiles they recommended for this media wall. So give LED Space a look. There's a link below down in the description if you want to grab some of their lights with a discount for you guys as well. So now the lights are in, I'm going to install the TV and the soundbar into the media wall. Now this bit's really easy. We've done all the hard work. All we've got to do is find the centre of the space that we gave ourselves for the TV. We will measure off the gap around the TV. We'll then find the level of the bracket. We'll mark where the holes need to go, drill the holes, bolt the bracket to the wall and hang the TV. So I got this bracket from Amazon. It's a full motion bracket, you can see here. It is rated for the weight and size of my TV. Do make sure you grab a bracket that's man enough for your TV. I will put a link to this one in the description for those of you that want to check it out. But do make sure whatever bracket you get that it is a full motion bracket, because otherwise you won't be able to pull the TV away from the wall to manage all your wiring and things behind the TV. It'll just be impossible. So make sure you get something that you can extend away from the wall like this one. So I'll make a little mark with my pencil and that'll be the center point of my TV and therefore my bracket as well. I dummied the bracket up on the back of the TV so that I could measure down and find the top of the bracket. So I know that that mark there is the top of my bracket. And I got this handy little template with the bracket so that I can mark on the wall where the bolts need to go. So I've lined that up with the marks that I made, put my level along the top, and I can now mark the 4 locations for the bolts. So the wall behind here is solid. So therefore I can use the plugs and bolts that were supplied. So 10mm SDS bit on an SDS drill. I'm going to drill into the block now to fit the bolts. Now I probably shouldn't need to say this, but make sure you don't drill through any of the cables that you've installed for the media wall, because that'd be embarrassing. 4 holes, 4 plugs. Let's hit them in there. Grab the bolts and the bracket and bolt it to the wall. Get a couple of bolts in initially and that will then hold it roughly in place so that you can level it up and faff around with it afterwards. Tighten up the rest of these bolts and then there is a level adjustment on the back of the plate here. So we'll level it up perfectly once the fixing plate is bolted tightly. There you go. That is going nowhere. So the TV bracket's up, but before I install the TV, I want to mount the skybox behind it. Skyboxes these days, the remotes actually work on Bluetooth, so you don't need a clear line of sight between the remote and the skybox. So I got hold of this little bracket, which will allow me to mount my skybox behind my TV, and that way it's out of sight. If this comes in handy for your installation, you'll find a link to it in the description below. Now we should be able to just clip the skybox right into that clip. There we go, so that's the skybox in place, the TV bracket in place. We're pretty much ready now to put all the cables in for those, but what we'll do first is get the sound bar fixed in place as well. And there we go, the sound bar's installed. Last job, mount the TV on the bracket. Hopefully I can lift this on in one go. And we should now be able to push it back in place. And there we go, the media wall is complete. I think it looks really effective in the room. I'm really pleased with it. Hopefully it's inspired you and it'll help you to follow along and build something like this for yourself. So if you've enjoyed this video, hit this one as well because you're bound to enjoy that. And if you want to see all this stuff on my renovation series, check out this playlist here. And I'll see you guys in the next one.